Welcome to the Hard Won Wisdom Podcast with best-selling author Fawn Germer and corporate innovator Michelle Brigman. Come here weekly for career and life-changing conversations with some of today's most influential thought leaders, senior executives, and trailblazers who will share their mentoring wisdom. This podcast is brought to you by the Women's Leadership Network.
So welcome, Kim.
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here.
Good to see you. You know, one thing I always have loved about you was that years ago when my cousin was up there in Minneapolis where you are, and you were at General Mills and he needed some job advice. And I wrote a note to you and you had him in your office the next day.
I remember that.
Well, who does that? I mean, seriously.
We do. We all do.
We all should, right? We all should, but usually people will send as a favor, send the resume somewhere and it goes into a black hole. But you really did it. And that's one of the reasons I love you so much is you're so authentic and so smart and just so on top of your game now, even in retirement. And so the first thing we need to start with is the story of you as a successful corporate person who also found the way to have a whole life in the process. So tell us the story.
Okay. Well, I don't want to ramble on with this. My story was really about sort of climbing the proverbial corporate ladder. And I was in marketing at General Mills and made my way through. I started in the late 80s. And my big, I'd say, roadblock in my career was in 1997. I was married, had been married for maybe 5 or 6 years, and I was told that I was unable to have children. And, at that point, that sort of was a problem because I'd always wanted to be a mother. And so I had a very successful career. My career was flying at that point. But like many women, it's something that I always sort of assumed would happen. And so I left work and took about a year off to try to figure out what we were going to do. And, my husband and I, go ahead.
You left work because you wanted to figure out how to have a life without children, or it was depressing, or what?
All of the above. No, never a life without children. We knew we would adopt. And in fact, that was one of the first things we did. We found an adoption agency, and my husband's white. So we knew we would want a Black child. And it's actually quite easy to adopt Black children in America. It doesn't take very long. And so we began that paperwork, and, you have to do the home study and take classes, and the African American Adoption Project in Minnesota is really good. So we actually went through that process. And along the way, it was a time but Stafford's father had died that year. 1997 was a big year in our lives. And it was just a time to reassess. And I also was thinking, okay, do I really want this corporate career? Is this a good time to go into nonprofit? So I used the time to do a lot of things, to reconnect with friends and family, with myself, to explore just other things, and just to renew.
I was going to ask you, just because there's that pivotal moment where you make a decision to kind of exit from a corporate environment. How did you frame up that conversation? Because I know this is something a lot of women, whether or not they want to go back to the same company or do something else, they worry about the ripple effect of making this sort of taking a detour off the exit ramp, about how to go about that. So I'd be interested.
Yeah. And, there's no easy way to do it. I was very lucky because I was working for a very enlightened company. General Mills just really handled me well, and all the way up to the CEO. And I did talk to the CEO, Steve Sanger, at the time, and he said exactly the right thing. I will never forget it. It's burned into my consciousness. But I told him, listen, he knew before the meeting, but I had to talk to him. And I said, look, I have a lot going on the personal front, and I just need some time. I'd like to take a year off. And the first thing he said to me was not, oh, well, we can't hold your job, or, when are you going to be back? First thing he said is, are you okay? And you know what happens when you're so, and of course the floodgates opened. It's just like the tears are streaming. I'm like, yes, I'm fine, because I just learned I couldn't have kids. And he said, Kim, you take the time you need, and we will be here on the other side. If every CEO in America knew that that's what you say when a woman comes to you and says, I've got some stuff going on I have to deal with, and you will get her undying loyalty. And that's how General Mills got mine. So anyway, long story short, we ended up being able to have kids. I have 2 girls, obviously, we've talked about the book. So, I was able to have children naturally. We did not end up adopting, although I've always wondered if we still should have adopted, because, we could have adopted. We were emotionally, mentally able and willing. But once you start having kids, your hands are so full.
Well, do you think that you became pregnant because finally you didn't have the daily pressure of the corporate world that kept you from being in a more receptive physical condition?
That's what my mom thinks. I think that's what my mom would say, and I had lived such a stressful job, these jobs are just big jobs, and they do produce a lot of stress. So that could have had something to do with it. I also, I happen to be sort of faith oriented. And that year I took off, I ran every single day. Winter, I got really fit. I was in the best shape of my life. And every day I would pray when I ran. And, they say you can ask for whatever you want. And that was the one thing I wanted. And, I just, who knows why the universe conspired to make my dreams come true? I don't know. But we were blessed with our first child in 1999, 2 years later. So anyway, on went my career. So you asked about other women who are trying to figure out how to navigate and negotiate. My 2 cents was, there's kind of never a good time to break your career and go have kids or leave or do whatever. But one thing that helped me is I felt like I understood what mattered most to me. And I'm very professionally oriented, and it really matters a lot, but I knew it didn't matter the most to me. And so that helped me feel like, gee, I hope it all works. But if it doesn't, I'll be able to find a job. It's okay. This is more important. I've got to get this piece straight. So that's what I always tell people, is make sure you know what you care the most about, and you'll make the right decision for you.
Well, it's great advice. And you think about, taking time to really reflect on what that is, because I think a lot of times, right, women are so busy juggling all of the things that they're busy reacting to the world that's in front of them, instead of pausing to listen and follow their heart or their intuition or whatever it is that says, these are the things that are priority. So it's interesting, just you were very connected to that, it sounds like, at an early age.
Yeah. And I think it was just the shock of something so big that I always expected to happen in my life being taken away. That does make you step back a bit. So anyway, just one other little story on this, because I think this is a great story about women supporting women, which is a real through line in my experience, my career experience, my life experience. But when I finally was ready to come back into the company, this is actually, this was after I had Sam. I took my maternity leave, very short maternity leave. And I was coming back in and just doing that little debrief. And I understood that I had been gone and my career could be impacted, but I also had been given such positive messages. Kim, you will be a division president. You're going to be successful here, blah, blah, blah. And so I kind of felt like I was next, so to speak, even though I'd taken this time off. And I remember I was debriefing with the individual who I was going into a VP role, and I was debriefing with him. He said, at the end, I said, so what job are you going to? And there's this huge pause. And he goes, oh, I'm being promoted to division president. And I thought I would be next. And so anyway, I somehow got off of that call. I was so, upset by this. And the first person I called was one of my mentors, a woman named Chris Shea. And Chris was so good. She gave me perspective and she said, Kim, you've been gone. You've been gone a year. It doesn't mean you're not great. It doesn't mean the company doesn't value you, but that year is real. And other people were growing, they were developing, they were, delivering results for the company. And so, you can't, everything has, these are puts and takes, and you should never regret the decision you made. You made it eyes wide open. Your time will still come, and that was the most important. I had felt like leaving the company right then, even after all they had done. So anyway, this thing that we can give one another perspective, empathy, and help each other navigate those little moments of, oh, I thought, and help us understand kind of the rules of the game. That's something I've always gotten from my mentors, and I've worked really hard to give to others.
Do you think you would have gotten that kind of support if you were way down the food chain at the company?
It's a good question. I think you build as you go, you build relationships as you go, and those relationships are stronger as you go because you've had more time with them. The more junior you are, you just haven't had as much time to get to know people. I know I counseled people all the time. Even when I was in the executive wing, I'd have people, very junior. So I think it just sort of depends.
But I mean, if somebody very junior said, hey, I got to figure out what I'm doing with my life, would they say, we'll be here for you?
Well, some of it depends on your credibility in the company, meaning where are you? If you are a strong performer in a company and you are junior, that company will want to retain you. They've already invested to bring you in. They've probably relocated you. So they kind of want to make it work. And more these companies are figuring out that if you help women navigate and men, by the way, this is for men too. If you help people navigate the challenging pieces, you'll get your return and then some, because they'll stay with you, because they'll be so grateful that you understood they were actually a whole human being, not just a machine working for you. And so I think even as a junior person, if you're in good standing. Now, if you are not in good standing, no, I don't think the company will bend over backwards and, oh, we'll create this for you when you come back and so forth. I think some of it does depend on, how you're doing.
I was going to say, what about the folks that didn't get the job? So now you move into the role, you come back and you're in that senior position, even, you took the year off, but the people that are resentful going, well, did they just give it to her because she's a woman? I mean, she hasn't been here in a year. There's that ripple effect that happens across the organization. How do you recommend even dealing with that, or what was your own experience with that?
I'm so glad you asked that question. I learned early in my career. I was very lucky. I figured this out early in my career. This was when I was promoted to manager, and I had a woman, it's a Black woman, come up to me, a friend in the company, a peer. And she was an assistant marketing manager. I'd just been promoted to manager. And she said, well, I just want you to know my manager, and I'm not even going to say the name, but my manager said the only reason you got that job is because you're a Black woman. And that was my first in, my professional life that I encountered that. And, the first thing I did was I was kind of in shock a little bit because this is someone I know, I know her manager. And I was like, wow, that's how he sees me. That's how he thinks about me. And then the more I reflected on it, I had my stats, I had my performance. And that's why I'm so such a believer in what I call forever results, things that can't be taken away from you. I'm also a believer in staying in role long enough so that no one can say, oh, well, that was such and such results, or well, she did that because that person was working for her. Multiple rotations of people and the through line keeps growing. That's a forever result. And so what I learned is that I can't control anything anyone is thinking at any point in time. And I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to waste a second of my time worrying about it. As long as I believe I've deserved what I've gotten, that's what matters. And as long as I can, substantiate, why I should be getting what I've gotten. And so, you have to let some of that noise go, or it'll just eat you up from the inside.
Well, it was very kind of her to share that with you.
I know. And how awful for her to hear that, as an up and coming young African-American woman, what is she supposed to, her boss is, who
Right.
says, even if he thought that, why would you say that to
It happens all
someone
the
working?
time. It happens
Yeah.
all the time, even
Well,
now.
we can't carry that noise. We just can't carry it. We'll let other people carry that and they can chew on it. I'm not going to carry it.
That's a really good thing. So as this is going, you're moving up and eventually you are president of Snacks.
Yeah. I did finally get the big promotion, which was super exciting. And I ran Snacks for about 6.5 years, had an amazing time, just had so much fun, had great results, double-digit revenue and profit growth, great climate scores. It was a fun division that everyone that works at General Mills has worked in cereal. That's kind of the joke at General Mills. Everybody is the product manager on Cheerios because nobody makes it up into the ranks without having worked on Cheerios. And I certainly paid my dues on Cheerios at every level, as an assistant manager, as a manager, and then as a VP of that unit. But nobody knows anything about Snacks. Snacks was thought to be it's a more remote division, a newer division. And what I loved about it is we could do kind of whatever we wanted, and we grew it, and we took risks, and we had fun. And Snacks by nature are fun, right? Snacking is, popcorn. Pop Secret was all about sitting in front of a movie on the couch with your girlfriend or your kids. I mean, that's fun, right? This isn't, anyway. Fruit snacks, that's something that kids like to eat. So snacks are a joyous occasion, and we just sort of rolled with that whole ethos. So loved my time in Snacks, and left Snacks after that 6.5-year period to go work on I basically left the operating arena, and the CEO approached me and asked if I would be interested in taking a job leading external relations. And this job was a promotion. I would be on the senior team, but I wouldn't be running a P&L. So I'd spent 22 years basically running P&Ls. And it was a big decision because, you probably aren't going to go back if you go that way. But it was an exciting role, lots of new things that were becoming important, like sustainability was just getting started at General Mills. I was personally very interested in sustainability. It was the policy piece, the government relations piece, the industry relations, the corporate brand and corporate communications internally and externally, the consumer relations, which was this is the beginning of, digitizing. Remember, it used to be sort of the call center. Well, my time, the 7 years I was there, was all about bringing that into, the modern era where we're able to listen seamlessly to consumers as they're talking about us digitally, and able to really leverage some of their insights to grow the businesses. And just a brave new world for marketing, really. So I took the job and never turned back. I loved that.
Did that mean by taking it, did that mean that you would never be CEO?
Probably. But I'm not sure that was my aspiration. If I had wanted that, like, oh my goodness, that's my goal. I just want to be CEO. I just want to be CEO. I was kind of one of those people that I feel like I never had, the company had more aspiration for me. Others had more aspiration for me than I had for myself. I was always shocked whenever they promoted me. Like, surely there's someone else that would be better at this. And they're like, no, it's going to be you. And yeah, I think you're right, Fawn. I think that job was sort of knowing I probably wasn't going to do that. But that wasn't going to work anyway, because the person in the chief operator, the only role that's going to lead to CEO, there's only one role in that leadership team. And that in our company was the chief operating officer role. And that someone had just taken. So, I think what my choice would have been is to just stay and run another division and just do divisions. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people did that. But for me, I was excited about playing at that higher level and, being a part of some of the bigger decision making for the company's, growth strategies, not just a brand, and thinking about brand General Mills. How do we bring that brand to the fore? So it was the right decision for me.
Well, I'd love to peel that back a little bit, because I
Sure.
know, again, there's a lot of women, and particularly that are faced with this decision where do I keep along the trajectory I've been in my career, or do I turn left and really tackle something new? And it's something that they don't have all of that wealth of knowledge. It's uncomfortable. It's scary. They worry about failure. We put all these pressures. So how do you advise someone on making that decision to find the courage to turn and go with it? What do they need to do to be successful in making that?
Yeah. Well, I think all of these career decisions all rest on the same thing, which is knowing who you are and being confident that, none of these decisions are as make or break as we think they are. Honestly, I have so many peers, they've left companies, they've gone to different roles. It all works out. It feels like it at the time. You feel like, oh my goodness, if I take this turn, what's going to happen? It all works out. So you kind of have to know that you're going to be fine, and for me, it's always been about, I always said, I'm leaving this company the minute I'm no longer, there's nothing more for me to do. I'm not being challenged or learning. And you said it so well, Michelle, this was a job I didn't know how to do. I knew how to run a division. I could run another one. I knew that world. I had no idea how to do this job. And the area was very fragmented and needed to be brought together. There was a lot of new work to do, and the work would have impact on the entire company. And that is what in the end got me. I wanted the impact. That was, I could impact one small part of the business, or I could impact the whole thing. And that's kind of what really convinced me.
Or even the industry, because to your point earlier, this is new for corporations to be thinking about the broader impact that their decisions are having on, sustainability, et cetera. And I just wonder, now being in the position you are, do you think a lot of what you learned there led you to this place you're in now?
I do. And that's why I say it all works out the way it's supposed to work out. So, my advice to any listeners who are agonizing, because we agonize over these things, is if you stay where you are, it's going to be fine. If you go, it'll be fine. It's all going to be fine. Just make sure you know who you are. And if you're someone who likes change and wants to learn something new, go for it. Don't worry about it. If you feel like there's still more work you want to do where you are, that's fine too. I think we need to be a little more flexible about these various opportunities. I do think that I've been told that this combination of 2/3 of the career running the business and the operating experience, the deep understanding of everything from, managing your cost structure to employee morale and, every issue that you deal with, innovation, the importance of innovation, legal issues, all of it, that part versus understanding what corporations are being faced with, activist investors, activist employees, activists, external stakeholders, could be environmentalists. It can be, there's a lot more going on right now coming at leadership teams in these large corporations than I think there was 20, 30 years ago. So I do think that combination has been really helpful for me as I've moved into this next phase of my career.
It surprises me that we still hear so much about women feeling like imposters. And I am certain that when someone gets tossed into something that they're very unfamiliar with, that's the first place they go is, I don't know what I'm doing. They're
Yeah.
going to know that I'm not good at it. And so, how do you advise them to build the kind of confidence that helps them so they can be effective and not lose their minds?
Yeah, and that is a real thing, particularly when you're in an operating role, you pretty much do know everything better than the people coming up. You've done it more, you have more experience. But when you go into a role where you are leading subject matter experts, that is not the case. And I would tell others the same, I would give them the same advice that Ken Powell, who I reported to for all of my 7 years, gave me when I first took the role. And he said, Kim, you're in a role now, because he said, this is what it's like being CEO too. He said, you're in a role now where everyone who comes to you will know more about their subject and their area than you will. And you're going to have to let go of feeling like you're supposed to know more. You're going to have to ladder up to, how do I help them do their job better? And how do I help the organization better leverage that area? You're just going to have to ask yourself different questions and contribute different value than actually being the person who is the smartest about whatever, fruit snacks or grain snacks or granola bars or whatever. And I think that's real. But it's hard. It is hard. It's hard to have, I would go to Washington, D.C., and we have this fabulous government relations woman, MC Toker, just amazing woman. And 25 years she's been in Washington, knows everybody, knows everything, remembers the bill 20 years ago that, didn't pass because of such and such. And so it's quite humbling, that I would be her supervisor. And, she was the one who had so much knowledge, but there were things I knew about the company and what the company needed us to be doing and how we could better leverage the company on behalf of the work she was doing. So, we ended up being fabulous partners because of that exact dynamic of, let your subject matter experts, let them shine. That's fantastic. That's what you want. It's not about you. That is the biggest insight I think I have from my time in corporate America, is you think it's about you, you want it to be about you, but as you get higher and higher, it just isn't. It's really about the people who are actually doing the heavy lifting. And it's about enabling them, inspiring them, motivating them, helping them, removing the obstacles that make their lives miserable, giving them permission. A lot of times they just need permission, someone to say, yeah, do it. Yeah. They could do it, but they don't. They need permission. I don't know why. But sometimes that's all they need from you. They don't need you to nitpick it, whatever it is they're bringing you. They just need your permission.
Does that go to one of the lessons from the book you've threatened to write for years, which is everything I learned in business?
Yes. Everything I ever needed to know to be successful in business, I learned from my kids. I have been threatening to write it. I will write this book, Fawn.
Okay.
You're my inspiration because you keep spitting these books out. So I'm going to do it.
It's funny how she lets everyone know what their book is after she listens to us. It's like, well, you need to write on this and you need to.
No, this is a gimme. So tell some of the lessons.
I will.
Why?
I will. And I just have to say, Fawn was the first person I really knew that kind of drew me into the book writing process. Like when you did your New Power Rules book and asked me to be a part of that, that was the first time I really got kind of close into someone's process. And anyway, very inspiring. So thank you for that.
You've got big things in front of you. Wear that nice suit and look great.
All right. So this book, I have the chapter headings done. And one of them is Mommy, I'm Afraid of the Dark. And that's all about risk taking and the fear of the things that are unknown that can paralyze you. And sometimes you just need someone to come show you that there's nothing under the bed. There's nothing in the closet. You're fine. Go for it. That's one. Another chapter head is No Me Mommy. So any mother knows that. No me, I want to do it. And that's all about how your employees want to do it. They know you know how to do it. They don't want you to do it. They want to do it. And what they really want is another chapter head called Look Mommy. And Look Mommy is just all they want is your praise. That's all they're asking for. Just look at this and this brilliance and admire it and tell me how beautifully I've drawn this picture. And so many times we don't do that. Instead, we say, but why is it blue? Horses aren't blue, and that's the same thing for your employees. Your employees really a lot of times just need for you to say, great job. That is really well done. I just have to tell you, that was so beautifully done. So there are all these little insights. I've always said that the best professional development program I've experienced was becoming a mother, for sure. Patience, empathy, learning how to teach, how to coach, but not do. All the things that any good leadership training program will tell you, your kids will teach you. Vision, helping them understand what's going to happen, where we're going, all of that, so that they're like, okay, I understand what we're doing. I remember my eldest, Sam, would always say, where are we going? Who's going to be there? Why are we going there? She always wanted to know what the plan was. And it's like, you're 4. You don't even know any of the people that will be there, but she wanted to know. So, and I think that's how employees can be too. Even though they're operating in this small little place over there, they want to know where are we going? What are we trying to accomplish here? I understand I have a small piece here. How does my small piece fit into the big piece? So I think there's a lot there.
So, Michelle, do you get it? I mean, don't you see that as
it's a total bestseller. Every manager, every person who aspires to enter in any type of leadership position, because those are just good basic skills. And then of course we all need the reminders as we progress, because we can fall back on some bad habits if we're not careful.
Yes, we can.
Especially as you change and enter into a different role or whatever. Well, this was absolutely amazing. I mean, Kim, just listening to your story and insights, there were a few things that I think are really going to register as great hard-won wisdom with our audience.
I know we're wrapping up, but wait, there's more.
Oh, okay.
The one thing we have to do before we can wrap up is you have to talk about what you did for your daughter.
The daughter.
Because hold it up for those who are watching.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So tell our audience that's listening what you're holding up. Show the ones that are watching, because this is a big deal.
Okay. So one of the things, I retired from General Mills in 2018. And one of the things I did was I wrote a book for my daughters. I have 2 daughters. They're now, one of them, this one, Taylor, was just going into college. She went to Princeton, and the other one was in University of Michigan. And this book is called On Life, Things I Should Have Told You. And every chapter is on a topic that is relevant. It could be on courage, on sex, on technology, on marriage, you name it, health, money, all the big stuff. Everything that any self-respecting 18-year-old would not sit still to have you lecture them on is in the book. And my vision was just that I wanted them to know how I felt about these topics. And it's not that they don't have a general sense because they grew up with me, but I wanted it all to be in one place so that, when they need it, when they are in that first heartbreak, or when they are struggling financially, or when they are feeling low, they have something to fall back on to help them through the way.
And I think that is such a beautiful gift. And I love that you're talking about it here, because anyone who has children can do this. The technology is there that they also can make beautiful books and affordably do this and actually publish this for your kids.
Yes.
And I said to Kim that the day will come when that's the most important thing they have left of her.
Yeah.
And because that's what mom's message was. So I just encourage everybody to take what you did and put their own stamp on it so that their children have that piece of their heart to carry on forever.
Yes, they know who you are, your deepest thoughts on the things that matter most.
And did that, I assume, because as an author, I know that you have a conversation with your reader from the beginning to end. Did that give you a more intimate relationship with your kids as you were doing it, even though they didn't know you were doing it?
It's a good thing to crystallize these things. I mean, I think it, if anything, gave me better clarity for myself to have to write it down. Like, why do I want to do a chapter on courage? I want to do this chapter because I think it's really important. And so it crystallized it for me. And then for my kids, I think they are, they're college students. I told you earlier, Fawn, my youngest read it cover to cover the night I gave it to her, so she's absorbed it. And I think she's going to use this and value it. I don't know. I think my oldest will too. She'll never tell me. That's okay. Any moms out there, girls will recognize those differences. But I have the sense of satisfaction that I've given it to them. I've done that piece and it's available to them. And that feels really good.
So awesome. Okay, Michelle.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. You'll inspire me to go and make a book for my own. But yeah, there were just so many things that you shared today that really resonated with me from your hard-won wisdom. And I thought I'd just do a couple of recaps on a few. So I loved that in the beginning and how, although it was coming from tragedy, but sometimes we get our biggest lessons in those moments. But really the fact that you said when you understand what matters most to you, then you have the courage to get through those difficult times. And it sounds like understanding what mattered most was really that compass that led you through multiple decisions along the way. So advice for folks on the phone is really to take time to get to know yourself.
Yeah.
You also had a great point about surrounding yourself with mentors who are champions to you, but also willing to be honest and really help to inform and teach you the rules of the game. And I think our job then as mentees is to listen to that perspective because there is so much wisdom that you're going to gain from that. You shared the importance of focusing on your forever results because these are the ones that are just foundational and they're the ones your entire being and brand will be built around. And those are the ones that matter long term. So you can let go of some of the other things that can cause you a bit of stress or distraction unnecessarily. And then you had, it's okay to shift from being the smartest person in the room or the expert and really shifting your mindset to be, how do you enable others? And how can you bring more value to your company or your cause through those other people? That's what greatness is measured from. And then finally, I'll end it on enable, inspire, motivate, and celebrate others. That will make you the best leader possible. So just thank you so much for sharing that wisdom with us, Kim. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Right.
My pleasure. Great summary.
And we're not done with you. We're going to go to the after show, which will be available on the Women's Leadership Network, because we still have to talk about you retiring so young and then how that's been. And then you got this uber duper corporate board appointment that just came on. So we want to hear more. Kim, Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining the Hard-Won Wisdom Podcast with best-selling author Fawn Germer and corporate innovator Michelle Brigman. Join us weekly for career and life-changing conversations with some of today's most influential thought leaders, senior executives, and trailblazers who will share their mentoring wisdom. This podcast is brought to you by the Women's Leadership Network. Visit hardwonwisdom.com for more on this podcast and for links to Fawn and Michelle's web pages and social media. Also, be sure to rate, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort, and we'll see you next week.